Guys, Collingwood unpopular opinions in our actual bye week, and we had a lot of input from the community. We had over 40 comments, so I thank you guys for joining in and sharing your thoughts and unpopular opinions, and now I have the fun task of addressing them and losing some friends throughout this process. The first one I've got here is from CGees2875. Side bottom should retire at the end of the season. He gets bodied easily in one-on-one contests and his disposal isn't as good as it used to be. He's already a legend and it's time to go out on a high. I will say these opinions were posted prior to the North Melbourne game. So I think people's perspectives may have changed since then regarding Steele's side bottom because of the performance he had in the midfield, winding back the clock, if you will. And yes, Gees is not wrong. His disposal hasn't been great. His one-on-one contest is diminishing slowly. He's a legend of the club, but you see him play the way he did in the North Melbourne game and put the weight on his shoulders to get some impact in the middle of the field. You just can't let go of someone who has that desire that's still instilled within him. And that's why he's a champion. That's why he's a two-time premiership player. That's why he kicks that clutch goal against Brisbane in the grand final. I'm not willing to let go of him just yet. If he wants, I feel like this is probably something we'll need to revisit at the end of the year. Obviously, there's variables in the sense that how many other vets are going to retire. We need to stagger those retirements. How did Sidey perform for the rest of the year? Did he play more midfield time? Does he stay on the wing? Does he go back to half-back flank as the experiment continues? So I think let's revisit this one and talk about that at the end of 2024. Darcy Finn says, Darcy Cameron, All-Australian squad and top 5 BNF, and Nathan Kruger to kick 20 plus goals for the season. Darcy Cameron, All-Australian squad is definitely a sneak. I think he's probably behind players like Max Gawn, obviously, Tristan Sherry and Rowan Marshall, and then I'd go Darcy Cameron. As I've said many times before, Darcy Cameron is certainly, without a doubt, the best marking ruckman in the league and best intercept marking ruckman in the league as well. So he definitely has some unique strings to his bow when it comes to the ruckmen that are floating around the league. But I do think he's slightly behind the mark. The top 5 BNF is a good shout. I think he's probably top 3 at the moment behind Nick Dacos and Jack Crisp. And Nathan Kruger to kick 20 goals this season. What's he kicked so far? He's kicked 4 goals in 2 games. There's another 10 games to go. He needs to average probably just under a goal and a half. So I don't think that's an outrageous call. So I think that's more of it's a fair opinion. It's a reasonable one. This next one is from Miss Didi38. Young guns looking good as they begin to mesh in a team. Is there a spot for Cox or Mitchell going forward? Addressing Cox, Nathan Kruger coming in is a massive spanner in the works for someone like Mason Cox because that is his position as that resting forward, pinch hit sort of ruckman position that Cox typically occupies, whereas Nathan Kruger's doing that pretty well. I'd say Nathan Kruger probably embodies more of a true key forward style type of player, whereas Cox is that really rest at home, sort of put it on his head and feed him in that way, whereas Kruger can do it in many other ways. So when you factor in Brody Myercheck, McStay coming back, it's going to be difficult for Mason Cox, that's for sure. It's going to be difficult. And I think if we don't go with Mason Cox and Darcy Cameron, it means Darcy Cameron's likely going to have to bear a heavier load in the ruck as opposed to if Cox was in, because Kruger is probably not going to pinch hit as much as Mason Cox is. Regarding Tom Mitchell, what does the midfield makeup look like right now? You got Jack Crisp, Nick Dacos, Scott Pendlebury, Josh Dacos is there, Patrick Lipinski's around the mark, Bo McCreary floats in, Lockie Sullivan. I think he maybe sneaks his way back in before the final series for someone like Lockie Sullivan, who's done well, but I don't think he's necessarily doing enough to hold his spot in the midfield just yet. Matt Spencer says Ash Johnson to a fullback experiment. And I think there's a common saying that goes around in the footy world. It's before you throw them out, either throw them back or throw them forward. So basically switch their positions entirely. And that's probably the last option for Ash Johnson right now. Although in saying that, I think he did kick 3 goals against North Melbourne's VFL side, which was positive. So hold on to your hats. We're not too sure what's going to happen there, but it's a decent shout. And he has played a bit of halfback in the VFL a few weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago now, but I think that was short-lived when he was asked to come back in as a forward at AFL level. So worth consideration. Does it happen? I'm not too sure, but it's something that should be entertained. Jim of the Jimbos, Anthony, if you want unpopular, I'll give you unpopular. Darcy Moore to surrender the captaincy to the kid, and I think the kid would be someone like Nick Dacos. Tough one. If you said Braden Maynard, I could maybe make a case for it because I think Bruzzy or the Bruz envisages the Collingwood bloodline more than Darcy Moore. I guess he embodies what a Collingwood player looks like without trying to stereotype anyone. I think Darcy Moore's outstanding. He's well spoken. He's a great player. But you would have thought a Bruzzy Maynard would be a perfect candidate. An angry Pendlebury is what they call Bruzzy for the next captaincy. But I guess, yeah, Nick Dacos is obviously, he exudes leadership characteristics that exceed beyond his current age. So when is the time to go, all right, Das, hey, let's give Das a nudge. Hey, mate, Nick's ready. He's 21, but he's ready. So that would be interesting. And watch your space. It's something to keep an eye on. Stars Jake says, we'll trade a big name star for a big key forward, trading possibly Jordan De Goey. Now that's a juicy one. So Jake is suggesting De Goey gets traded for a big star key forward. Geez, I guess you can't count it out. It would be a difficult conversation and a difficult picture to accept, seeing De Goey in different colours for a key forward coming into the club. If it was up to me, I wouldn't allow it. But if the right opportunity presents and you win out on that trade, maybe. But I am a pretty loyal person and I like to see players remain where they belong, especially someone like De Goey who has had his own troubles on and off the field, and to win a flag and have his story remain in black and white, I would like to see that as the fairy tale ending. But it's definitely another really good unpopular opinion. The Laughing Magpie says, we'll fit McStay, Myercheck and Kruger in the best 23 at the end of the year. This is going to make us quite tall, obviously. And then you probably have to consider we're going to have one less small forward, right? So if you've got Jamie Elliott, Bobby Hill, Lockie Schultz, Bo McCreary, Joe Richards, you can't have all five of them in the one side. So really, if that is the case, we're going to have to lose one or two of those players, which is going to be difficult. I think we've really thrived as a small forward based, I guess, system operating in the forward half. So it'd be quite a shake-up. But in saying that, we did have McStay, Myercheck and Cox playing last year in the final series. So that's worth its weight in consideration. And I think there's a bit of conversation in the comment section. What did the Laughing Magpie say here? So Seagees2875 said, that would be a disaster, lol. No more forward line pressure and teams would walk out of our defense with ease. But then another comment from T Mello Magpies, good thing McCreary and Schultz are decent pressure forwards. And then the Laughing Magpie then says, that's why I stick fat on my claim. So there's a case there to be made and always worth consideration. The next one's from Immortal Eagle 43. McRae needs a pre-season to work on his strength and speed. He uses the ball clearly, but he struggles to chase people and can't stick tackles. That's an interesting one because I think he needs to work on his ball use. And I think he's quite good at chasing people and sticking tackles. I feel like that's one of the key pillars in his game. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on that, Immortal Eagle but he definitely needs a pre-season of work with his ball use. I also wonder at VFL level, is he being encouraged to run and burst out of packs and then to gather his thoughts in the midst of that contest and dispose of the ball at a high quality? Because we're seeing at the moment he's getting the ball and he's just smacking it on his foot. Does he have the speed to get out? Which is a point Immortal Eagle makes. He needs to work on his speed, so maybe that's a point. You'd want to hope that there is a instruction for McRae, at least from now onwards, that if when he does play at VFL level, take that ball from the contest, bring it from inside to outside, and that's how you'll build your game and become a consistent AFL level performer. Com Clancy, which is Tom Clancy with a bit of wordplay, 93. Maynard should be made captain instead of being the most fun and entertaining team, we should feed on the hatred that everyone else has for us and becomes the villain of the league. I like it. I do like it, and I think I mentioned that to a certain extent in the last comment regarding captaincy around Darcy Moore. So that's another interesting one. Gary Cabinet says McRae used as trade bait. Unfortunately, I just think right now, especially after his game against North Melbourne, he doesn't have a lot of trade value, if any. So you either hold on to him and keep the faith. I think he's out of contract at the end of this year or next year. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Can he find another club? Does he want to stick fat? Do we give him an extension by 1 year to see if he's really got it? Or does he just need that fresh start where he goes to a new club under a different tutelage? Because whatever's happening right now, it's just, you get one okay game from him, one good game there, but then a couple bad games in a row. So that's his biggest issue right now that needs to be worked on. The Laughing Magpie says Josh Carmichael will be medically retired. There's not a whole lot coming out of there, but there are definitely fears instilled within the four walls that is very likely, but I cannot comment any further on that until I get further information. Tony/2522 says Jamie Elliott's land on the moon. I think that's just a cheeky reference for his specky mark against Essendon. And then Ned Long to take the footy world by storm. Strong 194 centimetre mid. So I think everyone's pretty optimistic about what Ned Long can do at AFL level. So hopefully we can see something like that's happened. He's currently nursing a calf injury. He's not too far off. I think he'll be available post-bye. And while we do have some other injuries within the midfield regarding Tom Mitchell, De Goey, Pendlebury, I'm not sure how many of them will be available post-bye. But if there are a few still missing, maybe Ned Long gets that AFL debut for Collingwood, as he's already represented Hawthorn in the last couple of years. George Bond, quadruple 7 says, how about Reef for the midfield? He was a midfielder when he was recruited. Let's see if he has the ability. Try him in the VFL. And I think he was tried in the VFL against Footscray, if I remember correctly, and had 16 touches, had about 40% centre bounce attendances. So it's something that Collingwood are considering, given the injury woes we have. And the fact that he was drafted initially as a midfielder suggests that there is an opportunity there in the midst of all these injuries. Is it just a real backup plan? If Ned Long doesn't work out, if Lockie Sullivan isn't working, then they can go Reef McInnes. But when he came on against North, he actually had quite a nice impact and passed the eye test in the forward line. He's averaging 2 goals a game, and some of those games where he's coming on as a sub, he's still impacting the scoreboard and still averaging 2 goals a game despite starting a few games as a sub. So that's a real testament to McInnes in the sense that he comes on, is still able to have an impact and find a way to get involved. So I think a start for him, at least in the forward line, beckons for him soon, and maybe we might see that against Gold Coast. Bernard Parsons, 7682 says, what's the real reason behind Wright's sabbatical? Will he return or will he be poached? Will he join the impending Tasmanian team? That's a question for you guys, an opinion for you guys to confer about in the comment section. So I'll leave that with you guys and let me know what you think regarding Bernard's unpopular suggestion there. And you know what? I'm going to chime in with one of my own Collingwood unpopular opinions. You guys are putting your neck on a chopping board. I may as well put mine up there as well. And mine is, I think TJ Taujath will play in the final series. In lieu of who? I don't know. Is it a John Noble? I'm not too sure. Is it Oleg Markov? I don't know. But I have this feeling. I really like what I see from the man. He is raw, but there's just so much to like. And I think just get him in. I don't know how else to explain it. You can say he's not ready, blah, 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 but when are you really ever truly ready to play AFL or any professional sport? You're not ready until you're thrown into there, and if you don't look too far off the pace, then you'll find ways to adjust. You look at Charlie Dean, he's starting to look like he's finding a place in the Collingwood defence after being torn apart against Sam Darcy. He's bounced back and had some really nice games. Well, had a really good game against North Melbourne at least. So there's the case there. Get him in while we're still working towards a finals berth. And then by the time, hopefully, we're in the finals and hopefully the top 4, he'll be well accustomed to the AFL intensity and the conditioning. Obviously, cramped up in the game. But I think there's too much to like about him to waste any time of... Not waste time, but yeah, I will use that. I guess I will use waste time. Waste time having him in the VFL. Kev's Magpies 1306 says Collingwood will go back-to-back with Collingwood winning its 17th flag. Probably an unpopular opinion for the other clubs, as people don't want to see Collingwood go back-to-back and probably think that Sydney and Carlton are better suited or in a better position right now relative to where Collingwood are at. But I would definitely say that's a popular opinion for the Collingwood Army. So hopefully, Collingwood will win their 17th flag. And just tying in on my unpopular opinion before regarding TJ, I will make a case that there is a world where we see someone like John Noble or Billy Frampton be the John Noble of 2023 and not play in the final series. Play most games leading into the final series and then get dropped like John Noble did last year. And I think that might be a Billy Frampton. I'm just a little bit concerned. He's being sort of chucked around as the gap filler to a lesser extent compared to like a Will Hoskin-Elliott, who obviously fits any position within any need, whereas Frampton up forward doesn't have a great impact, limited at the very best. I think he has kicked 1 goal over the last 2 games against North Melbourne and who was it last week, guys? Help me out. Goodness gracious. Melbourne Demons. And then in the back line, if you're looking to keep Charlie Dean in there along with Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe, then does that see room for Billy Frampton to fit in there? I'm not too sure. It's going to depend on who we face in the finals as well. You've seen Billy Frampton play relatively well against Carlton, and there's a chance we face them. There were situations against Sydney where we didn't have Billy Frampton where we really struggled. So I think you can make the case there, but I've just got an inkling that one of those two may miss. And that's just my gut feeling. There's not a whole lot of rationale there apart from what I just mentioned regarding matchups for Billy Frampton. And the last one from Benny Pastors, 1995. I've mentioned how I feel about Pendlebury going on. Jeremy Howe should have 1 more season to help out TJ and Josh Eyre and let them develop more. Even having Jeremy Howe forward for periods next season and still side bottom isn't a part of the future plans for Collingwood. Let North Melbourne offer him a bag and have fun playing for North. Quickly on the still side bottom one, it's ironic that he had the performance that he did against North Melbourne. Would North Melbourne offer him a bag? I certainly don't think so. Maybe they could offer him a role where he transitions into a coaching capacity the year after. But I think Collingwood will be looking to do the same thing for still side bottom if he wants to pursue a coaching opportunity at AFL level. And then Jeremy Howe forward for periods next season. Well, he played forward against North Melbourne and he did very well and was a very important cog in the wheel in that second half that got us that awesome 54-point win comeback. And yeah, obviously Jeremy Howe helping out TJ and Josh Eyre next year would be massive. We still see these players, Sadie, Howe, Pendlebury, they still got juice left in the tank. So it's just one of those ones, like it's just a wait and see. Don't come to any rash decisions and let's see where everyone is at the end of the year. Do we win another flag? We'll obviously have a massive, I guess, play on whether these guys want to go on next year. Do they want to take lesser contracts? Do they want to move into a more coaching role? I'm sure they don't want to play VFL in the twilight of their career. But yeah, hopefully we can win our 17th flag this year and get right towards the pointy end of the year regarding injuries and whatnot. But if you guys want to quickly revisit our 14th premiership, then consider watching this video regarding 1990, how we lost by 83 points against Hawthorn in round 20 and then ended up winning the flag 8 weeks later.